I wanted to see if I could automate virtual machine deployments. I've set a few rules. No pressure. We create our endpoint and we logged into the Orchestrator client. Now we need to go poke around the vCenter inventory to figure out what we're working with. Let's go do it. All right, here in Orchestrator, we could go to Library Workflows. We could click on New Workflow and start defining a new workflow. But whenever I'm doing automation, before I actually start implementing the automation, I always want to make certain that I understand the system that I'm trying to automate. For example, in this case, what we're trying to do here is to automate some activities in vCenter. Now, I know vCenter, you know vCenter. In this particular case, we don't have to teach ourselves how to use that system, but in general, you need to know how to use the external system that you're automating in a manual fashion before you're going to be able to do much in the way of automating it. Now, I don't need to go to the vSphere client to learn about how to work with vCenter because we already know how to do that. But I am going to go over to the vSphere client. I've already logged into my vCenter server. The reason why I'm coming here is, even though I know vSphere and vCenter and the vSphere client, I don't know this lab environment. So let's start expanding this inventory here and see what's what. So we've got a vCenter server called vcenter-management-vcf.sdc.lab. If we expand, we can see that it has a data center called mgmt-datacenter-01. And in there are two clusters called management-cluster-01 and workload domain-cluster-01. In general, when I'm working in a lab environment, if there's a management cluster and another cluster or clusters, the reason why they're creating that separation is to separate management virtual machines such as the VCF automation server, your ESXi servers, your VCF operations, your NSX manager server. All those management tools typically go into your management cluster. The other clusters that we create, such as this one here, is where we're going to put our user virtual machines. In this little challenge that I've taken upon myself, I'm not deploying any management type virtual machines. I'm just going to deploy some user style virtual machines. So I'm going to be placing my virtual machines into this cluster called WLD, short for workload domain, -cluster-01. Let's see what's in there. All right. What's in there is, here in this cluster, I've got 3 different ESXi servers called ESXi-10 through 12, which I assume means the management cluster has, so it's got 4 ESXi servers. Somewhere out there, it looks like we've also presumably got ESXi 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, but I don't care about all those. What I care about is in our workload domain cluster, I've got these 3 different hosts that I could deploy my virtual machines to. All right, what else do we need to know? We also need to know where we're going to place the virtual machine in terms of virtual machine folders. In this lab environment, it looks like we've got a bunch of different virtual machine folders. Now, I'm not going to place my VMs in these management folders because, again, that's presumably where management software goes. But I do have, what do I have? I've got this folder here called development. That seems like a better fit. Templates doesn't make sense because I'm not deploying templates. I'm deploying virtual machines. I might deploy them from templates, but I'm not going to put my virtual machines in here. So I could choose to pick any of these, but you know what? I want to make certain that I'm not messing with anything. So I'm just going to say, let's create a new folder, specifically a virtual machine and template folder. And to make it really obvious that this one's mine, let's call this one my VM folder. Again, these pre-existing virtual machine folders that have already been created here in this lab environment might work perfectly well for our purposes, but I'm just going to keep things clean and use my own VM folder. Let's see about data stores. What data stores are available? Well, in terms of data stores, looks like we've got 2 different data stores. Let's see what's in these, because again, one of these might be a management data store and the other might be a data store for user workloads. So let's try to obey that. So if I go into the vSAN data store, and we take a look at the virtual machines in there, what do we see? Okay, well, this is a management virtual machine that's stored in this data store. So this is probably a data store that's being used for management stuff. So we'll use this data store instead. In the networking view, we can see that we have a variety of different networks, I assume. Yep. So we've got different networks. So we've got some on distributed virtual switches. I wonder what's in here. We'll just expand all these to see what, oh, hang on. This looks promising. This may not be exactly the network that we should be using. But again, this is just a temporary lab environment. So I'm not going to worry about learning the purpose of each of these. But this one is called the production network. And that sounds real promising. So we're going to go ahead and use this. Now that we understand the vCenter inventory, we need to go back to the Orchestrator client and figure out how to use it. Join me in the next video and I'll show you how.